Hi. Good afternoon. On a Tuesday in April of 2010, I received a call at work from my primary care doc. I was expecting her to deliver the all clear from a recent mammogram I'd had. A year before, I'd been in for a lump that I'd found in my left breast, and a mammogram had determined it was just a lymph node, nothing to worry about, come back next year. So I came back next year to make sure things were just fine, but things were indeed not fine. That old lymph node was still there doing its thing, but this mammogram had also detected the ominous indications of cancer. Despite having 2 mammograms in 2 years specifically to look for cancer, I was shocked. I was not supposed to get breast cancer. At age 40, I was far too young to have breast cancer. Second, breast cancer is not the disease that runs in my family. That would be heart disease. And third, among all my family and friends and my colleagues, I had the reputation of being the healthy one. I was teased for it. I was teased for buying organic. I dabbled in vegetarianism, and I had practiced yoga at that point for 12 years. I had done my best to be and stay physically healthy. So what the heck? Well, it turns out that doing all the right things from a healthy lifestyle perspective wasn't a guarantee that I would never get sick. It turns out that having healthy habits didn't mean I was in full control of my health. But my orientation toward my health did make all the difference, including my diligence in getting that mammogram and following up. My diagnosis was ductal carcinoma in situ, or DCIS. I was actually told by someone, well, if you're going to get breast cancer, this is the one you want. It's considered stage 0. In fact, there's some debate among experts as to whether DCIS is technically a cancer, as it refers to abnormal cells in the ducts of the breast that are not invasive. Yet, a biopsy determined my cancer cells were high grade. And unlike in school, a high grade when it comes to cancer cells is definitely not something you want. High-grade breast cancer cells multiply quickly and are more likely to turn into invasive cancer. If I'd blown off that follow-up appointment or had even waited a couple of months, I might have been facing a very different diagnosis and prognosis. As it was, my treatment would be a mastectomy. I'm pretty sure my jaw hit the floor when my surgeon said that, because she rushed to assure me that while this was breast-threatening, my cancer was not, at this point, life-threatening. If we moved pretty quickly, I probably would not even need chemotherapy or radiation. But surgery was not optional. The weeks between my diagnosis and surgery were plenty of time for me to get all worked up. My life at that point was a bit hectic. I was working full-time and living in a tiny house with my husband and 2 young children. My husband was unemployed at the time and job hunting, and now I was going to go on short-term disability at 60% pay, following a bilateral mastectomy and reconstruction surgery. It all felt so huge and confusing and scary. While I was, of course, comforted by early diagnosis and that whole not life-threatening part, my anxiety was through the roof about my cancer, about what was about to happen to my body, not to mention how this was going to affect my family. Maybe you know something of what that feels like. As I look through my journals from that time, and I filled 2 in short order, I see that the word resources kept coming to me. What are my resources? I kept asking myself. What did I need to get through this? The insight about resources comes from my practice of yoga. A year earlier, I had gone through a yoga teacher training, and one day we were working through a pose called crescent pose. As you can see, crescent pose is basically a runner's lunge with your back knee off the floor and your arms lifted overhead. I had done crescent pose hundreds of times, and every time it was a quad burner. My front thigh seemed to bear the weight of the entire pose. But in that training, we explored different ways to disperse the energy of crescent pose. That day, I learned to ground down through my front foot while lifting the front hamstring toward my thigh bone. I pressed my front shin forward while reaching back through the heel of my back foot. I drew in my core, lifted my heart, lifted my eyes, and breathed through my whole body. It was a revelation. I could stay here all day, or at least another minute. As I rooted down and lifted up and pressed forward and reached backwards and gathered my core and breathed, the thought literally just crossed my brain, holy cow, I have resources. So now I wondered, what resources did I have? What could help me disperse the energy of this cancer experience so I didn't have to bear the weight of it all by myself? When people find out you're facing a medical crisis, many want to help with something practical. So I leaned into that to start. Obviously, my family would need help keeping the household wheels turning while I was recovering. We would need meals. We would need carpools and daycare pickups. We would need help with laundry. But I needed more than practical support. I needed physical, spiritual, and social support as well. For the physical, I scheduled massage and acupuncture appointments before my surgery. For the spiritual, I'd planned on meditation and prayer. As you know, yoga was a big part of my life, so I decided to take my recovery time to read up on a little yoga philosophy. A side note, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, a 2,000-year-old text on the spiritual and ethical practices of yoga, are pretty heady when you are on heavy-duty pain medications. For the social, I knew what I needed as a highly extroverted social person was big-time connection. I didn't want social media connection. I didn't even put this on Facebook. I wanted tangible, in real life, connection with real people. So I asked my dear friend Katie, whom I've known since I was 16, if she could put the word out. In an email to a long list of friends and family, Katie asked people to send me fan mail. Every day, for weeks, I received cards, flowers, books, and CDs. An artist friend made a painting for me, which I still have hanging in my home. And while I was receiving cards and gifts, Katie collected digital messages from people far and wide via email. And she printed them on colored slips of paper. And she put them in this jar. This is my love jar. And it is literally stuffed with messages of encouragement and hope, friendship, commiseration, support, laughter, and memories. One thing I noticed recently when I was looking through my love jar and the cards that I received during that time is that not only did I receive support from my inner circle of friends and family, I received support from work colleagues, neighbors, friends from my kids' school, my parents' friends, people I didn't really have a close connection with. Honestly, 14 years later, looking through this love jar, there are a couple of names of people I don't remember. I was talking with Katie about this recently, and she said, yeah, but they loved you then, which is what you needed then. They may have only been in your world for that season, but they loved you. What I had discovered by accident or intuition is that there are so many ways to be well, even when you are objectively not well. I felt then, and I still feel, that while mine wasn't an easy experience, there was a lot of emotional turbulence and pain and a lot of unwelcome surprises along the way. My breast cancer journey turned out to be one of the best experiences of my life. Has anyone seen something like this? There are different versions of this model, some with 6, some with 8 aspects of well-being. But what this model makes crystal clear to me is that we are not just physical creatures. We are physical, emotional, social, and spiritual people. We make our way through the world and our understanding of ourselves in all kinds of ways. We are holistic. So why would we ever determine our well-being solely based on a diagnosis or prognosis? We wouldn't. Intuitively, you know this, even as I did when I was casting about for my resources. But I do think it's helpful to consider these dimensions and how they're related to and support each other and what they might each look like for us as individuals. Which of these dimensions resonate for you as you think about your own wellness and what might be possible for you? Here are a few questions you can ask yourself. Physically, what would feel good to your body? What would nourish it, strengthen it, soothe it, and restore it? And what if healthy habits were not so much about avoiding or escaping illness as they were a way to feel more alive? Emotionally, how can you gently and patiently acknowledge and tend to your difficult feelings of fear, grief, worry, and anger? What could you do to balance these real and important emotions with experiences that bring love, gratitude, awe, and even joy? Research shows that the extent to which we can access positive emotions improves our physical health and can even positively affect recovery from surgery. Socially, who matters to you, and do they know? How could you further nurture friendships or connect more truly and deeply with loved ones? And could you trust that people are there to support you and love you when you need it? Spiritually, what practices center you and sustain you, whether prayer, time in nature, meditation, music, study, being with others? What do you have faith in? What do you hold true and possible, even when you can't clearly see the path ahead? Intellectually, what lights up your mind? What knowledge, skills, and hard-won wisdom are you gaining? And how might you stay open and even curious rather than shutting down when things are intense or unwanted? And how might doing so change your experience? And occupationally, which is not, in my mind, necessarily about a job, how might you contribute your skills and talents, gifts, and unique perspectives in ways that are meaningful to others as well as personally satisfying to you? Wellness doesn't just come, of course. It takes intention to pursue wellness, especially when bad things are happening or we don't feel good. We may need help from doctors or therapists or coaches or friends and family. It takes self-awareness to even know what makes you feel well. No one can tell you what wellness means for you or how you can best achieve it. I am positive there are people in this room who in a million years would not want a love jar. But there is something that might help you. What is it? It takes a willingness to live life as fully as possible, even if and when your physical wellness is compromised. We don't just survive, we thrive when we gather our resources and tap into whatever dimensions of wellness we have access to. Today is a day of gathering our resources to support our wellness. We're going to learn from experts, bolstering our intellectual wellness. We're going to hear survivors' stories, feeding our emotional wellness. And we're going to connect with each other over breaks and a shared meal, cultivating social wellness. In fact, I'd like to invite you to tap into social wellness for just a couple of minutes right now. In just a moment, I will put up a couple of questions on the screen, and I'd love it if you would pair up, or little twos or threes, to consider these questions and share with each other your thoughts. So, look around the room, catch someone's eye, and if you'd like, scooch close to another person. And here are the questions. Here are the questions. You can take turns responding to them. What dimension or dimensions of wellness are you grateful for now? And what dimension or dimensions of wellness do you want more of? And why? Bonus question. Let's take a couple of minutes to think about these and to share. You ready to come back? So how was that? Did anyone have anything come up that they'd care to share? Yes?
So our group decided that we needed more of the physical wellness right now. So as a fellow breast cancer survivor, I appreciate hearing your story, and we both know that this is my husband, that we have aspects of our physical lives that we need to just keep improving. So we need more.
We need more physical well-being. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Did anyone else have anything come up that they'd like to share? I would like to share that I am excited to spend this day with you and to learn with you and to learn from you. I'll be hanging around all day, and I would love to chat with you about your experiences of wellness, even in the face of health challenges. And as you learn and listen and connect today, I hope you'll keep these dimensions of wellness in mind. I hope they shift some of your ideas about what's possible for you. And I hope you know that regardless of your diagnosis, your treatment plan, or your prognosis, you have access to wellness. You just have to claim it.